Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Cariel, and this is Cariel's Heartlink show. And as I connect to as many hearts as possible, we are creating more freedom, light, and love, one interview at a time. My programs will bring you insights into the great awakening that is underway on planet Earth. I'll be keeping you abreast of the latest tools available for anchoring a greater and healthier reality into your life. I'll be interviewing leading-edge experts in the metaphysical, scientific, paranormal, and spiritual realms. Stay tuned for the next hour as I speak with the famous David Icke, who has really traveled all over to get with us today. And I appreciate that. We've had some fun getting him to get plugged in here to the show. So you can call in at the bottom of the hour and ask your questions. So do remain on the show, and I'll activate those calls. Actually, I'll activate them in about 20 minutes. So just so you know that. So do have your questions ready when I ask for questions. And first I'd like to introduce what I do. I am a transformational counselor, coach, and educator. And at the Heartlink Institute, I train others to be counselors. And I also have a wonderful website at www.heartlinkinstitute.com. And you can go and learn about the certification program that I offer, as well as any online classes that are there for you, for your convenience. But if you are in the San Diego area, please do join us at the Heartlink Institute. We would love to see you. And we're going to have a very special workshop coming up in June. I'm very excited about this. Please join me on the summer solstice. And that's the weekend, June 20th and 21st. And I'll be sharing powerful secrets in hypnosis and hypnotherapy. And here's your chance to learn to create effective hypnotic states in yourself and others. And this could be the beginning of a satisfying career in a helping profession, or could add skills that you may need in your current situation. Now, just go to my website and you'll see the seminars link, and click on that and you'll find out more about that seminar, Powerful Secrets in Hypnosis. And that, as I say, is on the summer solstice that weekend. And so I would love for you to join us in Southern California. I also have the crop circle cards available to purchase on my website. And they are a wonderful oracle deck of 64 of the crop circle designs. So it's a very powerful deck of cards, and it comes with a book that explains how to use them. Let's just take a moment now and just draw in this wonderful sacred energy that flows around us, and breathe in sacred love. And the blessing of the day comes from the Gayatri prayer. Let us focus on that effulgent light from which the whole universe is projected. May this inner sun enlighten our minds and hearts, and may we awaken as that light. So good things are coming your way. And let me introduce David Icke, who is with us once again. He's been on several times now, and I just love having him on. He is such a wonderful speaker. Some say he's the most controversial speaker on the planet, and I really do think he has some very profound information. If you listen long enough, you will learn something from David Icke, I promise you. And he is a former professional soccer player, journalist, network anchorman for the BBC, a spokesman in the 1980s for the British Green Party. I find that all very fascinating, David, and I would just love for you to go ahead and introduce yourself. Welcome to our show. David Icke.
First of all, the synchronicity of my life took me to people, places, documents, situations, experiences that showed me that a very few people are actually dictating the direction of global society and manipulating world events, and they are seeking to create a global version of George Orwell's 1984, a global fascist state of total surveillance and all the rest of it. But as I moved through this journey, I came across other elements of this which have been highly controversial, like there are non-human connections to this whole conspiracy, and particularly since 2003, the synchronicity of my life has gone and taken me into deeper and deeper levels of what is reality, what's the nature of reality. Because unless we understand that basic thing, who are we, where are we, what is this reality, then we can't possibly understand to the level we need to what's happening in daily experience. And basically it's clear to me after 20 years of this full-time journey that's taken me to nearly 50 countries now, is that the key to a conspiracy, the manipulation of closing in on 7 billion people, and the key to opening the cell door, if you like, to let us out of this gathering conspiracy, this gathering Orwellian global state, is to understand that we have been manipulated and encouraged to live a false identity. That is the key. Billions and billions and billions of people on this planet are living a false identity. They're looking in the mirror and they're thinking the reflection is them. The reflection is them energetically, but in terms of the physical body, it's a vehicle. It's a holographic illusion, a vehicle for who they really are, consciousness, to experience this reality. And the more that I've understood this, the simpler it gets, because we are consciousness. Consciousness doesn't have form, it just is. It is awareness. It's awareness, that's all it is. And to experience this frequency range, because that's all it is that we call the world, which is an incredibly sophisticated version of a virtual reality game. I call it the virtual reality universe. We need, like, when I say we, I mean our consciousness, needs like we need to go on the internet. I mean, I'm sitting here now, I'm talking to you on the internet, but I can't just sit here and talk to you on the internet. I need a conduit. I need an interface that allows me to, consciousness needs a interface to experience this virtual reality universe that we are in for this short period of what we call time. And that conduit is what we call mind. People think that mind and consciousness are the same thing. They're not. Obviously, in the end, everything is consciousness, but there are different expressions of it and different levels of it. And mind is a much more computer-like, dense version of consciousness, and therefore, or expression of consciousness, and therefore has a much more limited ability to perceive, and it acts very much, and it perceives very much like a computer system, like software. This is why when we get really caught in mind at the expense of consciousness having any input really into our sense of perception, we tend to act in extremely predictable ways. Some psychologists, many psychologists, seem to say that you break down human personalities into 12 archetypes or nations of them. Now, you can't do that with consciousness, because consciousness is all possibility, that's what it is. But mind becomes a limited possibility, or limited sense of possibility, can be broken down into archetypes, because it operates like software. When you come from this perspective and you observe the world, see people acting constantly in this computer-like way. And what I mean by that, they'll face a situation and you know what the reaction's going to be. It literally is like typing in data and then pressing enter, and the computer reacts as it always reacts. And so the key breaking out of this sense of limitation, which allows the few to control the many. You can't control the many when the many are expressing infinite consciousness, whether it's the education system, whether it's the media information, operating on a fraction of our multidimensional infinite self. For instance, I'm sitting here in front of a computer. What would happen if the computer took over and started deciding where I went on the internet and what I thought of it? That would be crazy. We'd say, hey, something's really gone wrong here. The computer's taken over. Well, the mind takes us over, and it happens when we forget, and we're encouraged to forget, that we are consciousness and not the physical body. The mind and the physical body are two expressions of each other. The mind works through the brain, particularly the left side of the brain. It deals with language, with structure. It sees everything as apart from everything else. And this body-mind computer system, the interface that allows us to experience this reality, has become our self-identity. And because of that, we see ourselves in terms of limitation. I can't, little me. I could never do that. Oh, it's not possible. It's not possible. Yeah, consciousness never says it's not possible because it's all possibility. Mind says it's not possible because its perception is that it's not possible. As I travel this journey and I kind of hone this down and learn, as we all do, as you go through a journey of experience, which experiences really matter and which experiences were like little diversions that, with hindsight, didn't really matter. And it's coming down more and more to this situation where we need to get out of our mind. It's like if you want to find the truth about anything, then turn what appears to be the truth upside down and you'll get closer to it. So what would we say when someone's gone crazy? Say they're out of their minds. And often we say they're out of their minds because they have gone into consciousness, and consciousness perceives from a completely different perspective of reality, and therefore acts within this virtual reality universe, within the earth, the daily experience, in ways that are different. Therefore we say they've gone out of their minds, as if it's a bad thing. Actually, it could be a very good thing. I went through an experience, my mind opened like an express train in 1991. And because I was well known, I went through massive ridicule, unbelievable scale of ridicule in this country, because I started to act and say things that were completely different from the norm. And people said he's gone out of his mind. I hadn't had a breakdown, and it as many people listening will experience, when you first break through to consciousness, it is such a completely different concept. Possibilities, understanding start flooding into this level of us, into this mind level, and the mind level goes, hold on a second, what's going on? I don't understand this. I can't cope with this. I'm freezing, mate, because I can't compute this. And it takes time to bring your mind into sync, that you've opened to consciousness and this connection has now been made. But if we don't make it, then the world can't change. Because it was Einstein, I think, who said, never solve problems with the same level of consciousness that created them. I am David Icke, I am Method Smith, I am Charlie Jones. No, I am consciousness having experience. David Icke, Charlie Jones. And because we've got caught in mind and our self-identity comes from mind, we have reached a point where we go round and round in circles. Because the mind made humans, mind-made problems in a mind-made world, and then go back to mind to try to find solutions for them. We're just going to find more problems because mind has created the problems we're trying to find solutions for. It's sense of limitation. It's limited sense of awareness, and so we have to open to consciousness. Otherwise, the world can't change. Change in a positive way. It can change in certain ways. We can go from rule by fascism to rule by communism. Yeah, mind can do that.
Well, you've helped people to wake up in so many different ways from this hypnotic trance. When you look at what's happening now, and we spoke last in September of last year, that was when Obama had not yet taken office. Now, he has been in office for the last 100 days. And what's the most important event since that time that you've seen that fits in with the conspiracy theories that you've talked about?
Well, loads of them, really. I mean, I came up with a phrase many, many, many years ago now, called problem, reaction, solution, to describe a technique of creating a problem covertly and blaming someone else for it, telling the public through an unquestioning media the version of that question or that problem that you want them to believe, i.e. Bin Laden was the orchestrator of 9/11 and what have you, that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, which is another version of problem reaction solution, which I call no problem reaction solution, just the perception of one. And then you get the public at stage 2 to act or react with outrage, with fear, and say, do something. Say to the people in authority, do something. Something must be done. At which point, those who covertly created the problem, got that reaction, can then offer openly in changes in legislation and law. They can change society into the way that they want it to be by offering and the solutions to the problems they have themselves covertly created, but told the public someone else was responsible. Now, what we've got with Bush and Obama is a presidential version of problem reaction solution. Stage 1 was creating the problems. That was Bush, or Bush fronted it up. Of course, he was not really the most powerful man in America. I think almost anyone can get their head around that. It was the forces behind him that were showing him what to sign, giving him what to say. But during his term in office, massive problems were created for America. First of all, you had the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan, which has cost enormous amounts of money and lives, and stretched the American military to its limit. And then towards the end, we had this massive economic collapse. Now, they were problems that those manipulating have solutions waiting to offer. But there was no way that Bush, given his public image and his inability to string words together, was going to be able to sell those solutions. So along comes this guy, apparently out of nowhere, Barack Obama, with a smile on his face, nice guy, I'm on the people's side. And his job is to be a political used car salesman, basically. It is to sell the solutions to the problems that have been created. And here we have a situation where a man representing the people has not only mirrored what George Bush did in reacting to the collapse of the financial system, which was engineered coldly and calculatedly, but he's actually massively expanded on it. Trillions of dollars of taxpayers' debt, which they and their children and their children's children are going to have to work to repay, even though if you go into money it doesn't actually exist. It's just an illusion. But on the the balance books, it's not an illusion, because it says that you've got to pay that back plus interest. And much of this money has gone to the banks, the very people that were responsible for creating it in the first place. Not only that, another massive red flag is that Barack Obama has appointed to his economic team people like Tim Geithner and Larry Summers and all these people, those that were fundamentally responsible for the collapse happening, for the lack of regulation that allowed the system to run riot and get itself into such trouble. And people who are completely and utterly answerable to the banking cartel that is behind the economic collapse. And these people have come in as his economic team, and what has been their solution? To throw cuckoo land, ludicrous amounts of money at the banking system they represent. It's like the guy Paulson, Henry Hank Paulson. Up to 2006, he's chief executive officer of Goldman Sachs. He then comes into government as Treasury Secretary to George Bush, and 2 years later he's handing out fantastic amounts of money to save the banking system, taxpayers' money and debt. An enormous chunk of it went to Goldman Sachs. You have this revolving door between the banking system, business, pharmaceutical, and other cartels, including companies like Monsanto. And they have this revolving door where their personnel go between them and government and regulation agencies of government. They're supposed to regulate the people that they are going back and forth from in private industry and business. And of course, it's all a scam.
Now, it's so blatant.
The people always lose out because of that. Just one other point is this: if Barack Obama, I'm holding back the laughter, is really an independent man of the people who was massively funded by the banking system, by the way, and Wall Street, why on earth is he appointing the people both who were responsible for the collapse and are answerable ultimately to the people, to the system that was responsible for the collapse, to government to represent the economic interests of the public? It's insane.
It is insane. A senator recently said that the banksters own the country. You know, they're blatant about it, and there's this arrogance that just boggles the mind. So I know that we're definitely pretty much under their program still, and nothing really has changed, like as you say, just because we've got a new president. You know,
I'll tell you what has changed, though, Cariel. I'll tell you what has changed. Where's the anti-war movement? Where are the groups that challenge the Bush administration? Where have they gone?
The Obama administration knows exactly what they're doing because they've pacified all that. They've eradicated any people who have questions. They somehow have, again, put us back into a trance.
Because what they've done is, this is what I was talking about a few minutes ago: problem, reaction, solution, presidential version. Bush was the bad guy, right? And he did terrible things, and he was an appalling president, controlled by appalling people. But at least you could see what he was, and there was some awareness of what was going on. There were challenges to the agenda in its various forms. What he then did was brought in a guy who claims to represent the views of those who were challenging Bush, and yet he's just another Bush in disguise. Because what happens in America, happens in every country, but this is the American version. You have this force, we'll call it the Illuminati, that's one name for it. This is a network of secret societies and bloodlines that actually control the banking system, the transnational corporation, cartels, governments, political parties of all shades, etc. And they have a structure that makes sure that the president of either the Democrats or the Republicans is one of their guys. One of the main things they have is money. You have to attract cuckoo land, ludicrous, insane amounts of money just to run for president, but to actually run for the presidential candidature in your own party. As a result of that, the money goes to the ones that this Illuminati are okay with, either the one that they want or the one that's acceptable. And they control the Democratic Party to make sure their candidate gets the nomination through a network of organizations, think tanks, and trusts, which involve people like Zbigniew Brzezinski, the National Security Advisor to Jimmy Carter, George Soros. The other side, certainly in recent years and during the Bush administration, they had this network of people which became known as neocons or neoconservatives. And they're just different expressions, different masks on the same face. So the network that controls the Democratic Party answers to the Illuminati, the neocons answer to the Illuminati. So all they're doing from the Illuminati level of this structure, this network, is changing the face of their president from George Bush to Barack Obama. Nothing else changes. The reason for Obama is that he can sell what they want in the next stage, whereas someone like Bush couldn't. And for Obama to sell, they had to have massive problems that he could then offer the solutions to. I mean, if there are no problems, people say, what are you changing this for? It's okay. If it's not broke, don't mend it. So you make sure it is broke. And what we're seeing with Obama is it's a golden rule. I keep telling people it's the Obama rule. the golden rule. Don't listen to what he says, look at what he does. Because he's like a verbal stage magician. You know, when a magician wants you to not see what he's actually doing as part of a trick, then he'll do something to divert your eyes onto something else while he's doing it. And then you don't see it. And this is the same with Obama, only he's using words, and he's hiding through the words and the diversion of the words what he's actually doing, which is business as usual.
Well, he's using Ericksonian hypnotic language. It's wonderful, actually, because as a hypnotherapist who's obviously helping people rather than hurting, but with his language, you can see the embedded commands, and you can see how he paces people, and you can see how he leads people. It's amazing. I'm in awe.
Well, the thing is, Cariel, he's every speech, and the longer he's president, the more people will see this. Every speech is delivered the same. The delivery is the same. And then, of course, people will have noticed this by now. When he's talking, even the smallest, shortest speech, he's looking left and right all the time. He doesn't look straight on. He looks left and right. Why? Because that's where the teleprompter screens are, left and right of where he stands. And every word of his speeches are coming up from teleprompter screens. They're not coming from the heart. They're not coming from him. They're coming from teleprompter screens. And what he is a decent, I wouldn't say he was brilliant, he's a decent reader from teleprompter screens, although his left-right head movement is becoming so obvious, it's ridiculous now. And those words are not written by him. They are written or overseen by a guy called David Axelrod, who is his White House senior advisor, who was the man who orchestrated his entire election campaign against first Hillary Clinton and then John McCain. So he's just a reader of someone else's words, just like Bush was. It was obvious with Bush because he couldn't string words together, but Obama's got this reputation of being an orator. The more you listen to him, the less of an orator he is, because he's so one-dimensional in his delivery and the way he delivers everything. In fact, whether you noticed, on St. Patrick's Day, reception for Prime Minister and some guests actually went to the podium. Here's the guy so glued to the television that he even starts the Irish Prime Minister's speech and thanks himself for inviting the guests. This man who has this reputation, this image, is not even the intelligent man to the extent more intelligent than Bush, I guess, in the way he publicly handles himself. But he's not an intelligent man in terms of what intelligence is necessary to be a proper, effective, independent president. He's just has his string pulled by other people. I mean, he came out of Chicago, which is a cesspit politically. I mean, it's one of the most corrupt political systems in the world, and you cannot survive politically, let alone prosper, unless you are acceptable to that den of corruption that run that state for their own benefit. And Obama is a creation of that. So, I think some people who bought the Obama myth are now beginning to see, with the turn of events, that a myth it was. But a lot of people will still hold on to it because they won't want to admit to themselves that they've been had. But that's not a problem. Everyone's had. We're all had from time to time because there are so many pressures and manipulations to make sure we're had. We should celebrate when we realize we've been had and can see what we couldn't see before, instead of being embarrassed about it. The more people do that, the more people will open their minds and allow in what they're actually seeing of Obama, rather than what they're convincing themselves they're seeing to support the belief system they had about him before.
Well, I've just detached myself. I don't have any reactions anymore in terms of the politics of this country. I'm watching from a whole different place, and I understand that you've used the term, like you say, virtual reality game. And I'd like you to explain what you mean by that and how we can go about living our lives as awakened beings.
Well, I think, first of all, we need to come from the perspective of our true identity, because everything comes from that. If we go on believing that we are our bodies and we are even our thoughts, because thoughts come through mind, and a lot of those things come computer-like. When you're lying in a quiet place and all that chatter is going on in your head, and really, if you stop and detach from it, you can sit and observe these thoughts going through your mind. And if you're observing your thoughts, then who's doing the observing? Consciousness is. And we identify so much with this mind chatter that constantly goes on, and we think it's us. It's the same with emotions. We think that the way we are emotionally is who we are. When you can manipulate someone's emotions through chemicals, through electromagnetic fields, through food additives, through electrochemical means. And electrochemical is the body. It's the body's system. And we're not our bodies, that's the vehicle. And again, we get locked in this false self-identity that we are the body and we are the mind. And we think that our thought reactions and our emotional reactions are who we are. Not necessarily so. Many examples about people who've had access to certain chemicals like mercury in tooth fillings and stuff, been absolutely changed in terms of their personality. How can that be if their personality, their quote human personality, is who they are? It can't. Consciousness doesn't change. That level of them, mind-body level of them, can be changed and manipulated by electrochemical means, and also by manipulating them through the information they receive and information they don't receive. So if we come from the perspective of who we are is our body-mind, then we're already in real trouble. We're already coming from a crooked perspective, and therefore we're going to see the world from a filtered perspective. If, however, I really am is eternal, infinite consciousness, and I am experiencing having what we might call a life through this physical form and through this computer. For instance, since I've started to move in this direction personally, and my personal journey and what I communicate are fundamentally connected, things don't trouble me like they used to. I find myself saying all the time, it doesn't matter, doesn't matter, doesn't matter. Oh, so-and-so's saying this about it, doesn't matter, doesn't matter. It matters to mind because mind loves drama. It loves drama. It wants drama. It feeds off drama. It's mind, when you're sitting quietly, that says, "Oh, go, come on, I'm fed up. Something's got to. Let's do something. Something's got to do. Let's do something. I want something to happen." Mind always wants something to happen, whereas consciousness can just observe the world and doesn't need external stimulus to do that and get enjoyment from it and to get stimulation from it. So coming from the perspective I am consciousness as opposed to I am my mind and my body is a fundamental first step, because then your point of perspective, your point of observation of this world changes, and so everything in terms of the way you see this world changes. Would consciousness go to war? Are you kidding? Would consciousness get stressed because this tiny little detail in our lives is not working as we'd like it to? Of course not. No. Would it make a drama out of nothing when it's not necessary? No, it wouldn't. It completely changes the way that you perceive life and live your life. And so much stress has just fallen from me since I started coming from this perspective of being consciousness, observing this world, rather than being mind-body in this world. and everything becomes calmer. You seem to have more time, because time doesn't exist. It's just an illusion of this virtual reality universe. And when you get caught in the illusion of time, then you can have your perception of time dictated by events that happen around you. Oh, there's not enough time. Oh, is that the time? Oh my goodness me, I'm running out of time. Whereas when you come from consciousness, which is in a state of no time, then you don't fall into this time control in the same way. It doesn't mean that you can't acknowledge that a show is starting at 8 o'clock, so I'll be ready at 8 o'clock. You acknowledge that within this reality those things happen, but from another perspective, you know that time's all an illusion anyway. And this changes your relationship with time, and so you seem to have more time when you need it than you would if you got in a panic. I remember I was reading the news on a radio station many years ago now, back in the late 70s, and I was a young lad in those days, new to the whole thing, and what used to happen is about 5 minutes to the hour, the news was on every hour, you were getting reports in from the kind of community of stations newsroom in London, and you had to download the voice reports, put the scripts in the right order with the news reports, and then get into the news studio and read it all within 5 minutes. And it was always a panic at 5 minutes to every hour. And because you're new to it, and you're going, oh my goodness, oh no, I'm going to have a time, oh look, the clock's ticking. And this guy who'd been doing it for years, he came over to me and said, look mate, he said, you know that clock there, he says, it ticks second, 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 second. He says, if you panic, or if you stay calm, it doesn't tick any faster or slower, but if you stay calm, it seems to. And that was a profound thing he was saying without realizing it, that as Einstein pointed out, time is an illusion, and it's our relationship to what we call time that decides if it moves quick or moves slow. If you're sitting in a situation or you're in a situation that you're really not enjoying, time can seem to pass very slowly. When you're really enjoying it, it's like, oh, is this the time? Time flies when you're enjoying yourself. So again, that comes when you come from the self-identity. I am consciousness observing and experiencing in this reality. I am not this reality. That's not who I am. It's not what I'm experiencing. And so that's the key. But when you get deeper into the nature of reality, it's not just a trite phrase that this world is an illusion. It's provable fact from the fact that this apparently physical world, first of all, isn't physical and can't be. That's why in quantum physics they found that atoms have no solidity, they're just pockets of energy. And not even that if you go deep enough. And so pockets of that are not physical possibly create a physical world, but everything seems physical. So what's the answer here? It seems confusion and seems no answer to it, but there is. We are decoding vibrational information from the five senses through to the brain, which receives electrical information from the senses, and the brain constructs this physical reality, that information. And this is what's happening when someone's in a stooge on a hypnotist stage show. The hypnotist is intervening in that decoding process, so the brain decodes reality in a different way, like the woman next to them on the stage is naked or something. If the brain is programmed to believe that's the case, then it will decode reality, the one that the other person experiences, to fit that manipulated sense of what is real. And of course, when you understand how that system works, you can understand how we are manipulated like that en masse all the time through the media, through education, and all these other sources of so-called information. So the world that we think is outside of us and is a solid physical reality is actually only in our heads. It's like on a screen in our heads, if you like, in the same way that a computer is decoding electrical information from a disk on software into a reality on the screen of the computer. So the human body computer, in a far more sophisticated way, is decoding information into an apparently three-dimensional solid world that only actually exists in our heads. So we are experiencing this world as a virtual reality game, because that's what it is. The Matrix movies, the Matrix movie trilogy, portrayed reality as illusion, which happened again. They locked into it through that into the back of the brain, symbolically in the movies, actually portraying a truth about the world we live in. Is that we have been manipulated cradle to grave through all these sources.
People, you are listening to my guest, David Icke, and this is Cariel's Heartlink show. And I will go to questions in a moment. But first, David, you are talking about this incredible altered state of consciousness that we can go through. You talk about the female voice that you encountered when doing magic mushrooms and ayahuasca. Could you tell us about her? What did she tell you? What were some of the gems that you received?
Well, what happens when we connect with other levels of reality, like psychics do and what have you, is we're not decoding a voice. We're decoding vibrational information. And what is that? That's what a voice really is, if you like. I mean, my vocal cords now are creating a vibrational reflection of what I'm saying, and it passes between me and you in silence as a vibrational field. Then your brain decodes that and turns it into language. So when a psychic in Italy is decoding interdimensional information, what we call psychic connection or channeling or whatever, they'll decode it, if they're Italian, into Italian. If you're English, they'll decode it into English. If they're Russian, they'll decode it into Russian, because the prime state of it is not a language. That's what the brain does and creates, and the mind. The prime state is a vibrational communication, vibrational information. And it's the same when I went into that ayahuasca state in Brazil, in the rainforest in 2003. My mind cleared, or my brain cleared, and connected to levels of awareness that my, if you like, conscious, for want of a word, mind-body in everyday experience wouldn't connect to. And I decoded it. Now I heard it. What its prime state was not female or male, but just vibrational information projected by consciousness. And what happened was that over 2 days, first of all a couple of hours and then 5 hours the second day, this voice, just before I got into the stuff I've just been talking about, where the physical reality is created by the brain in the head from information it receives, and it's all an illusion. I wasn't talking about that at the time. I mean, I was aware of the concept, but I hadn't gone into it in any depth. And here's this voice in great detail and with tremendous humor explaining to me that this reality, which appears to be solid, is just an illusion. It's quite a very telling line that it said to me, which was, if it vibrates, it's illusion. I held that one for a while, and now I understand it meant. If you go to the deepest levels of consciousness, eternal consciousness, it is all possibility, it is potential, and it is what some writings in ancient and more recent times call the void. People think of a void as being like a vacuum, like there's nothing in it. But actually the void, in terms of infinite consciousness, is the opposite of a vacuum. It is all possibility, it is all potential, and it is all knowing because of that. And it is not something that is in a vibrational state, it is silent and it is still, because it's all knowing. And people, again, I talked earlier about, if you want to know the truth, then turn it upside down. Talk about silence, and they perceive silence as nothing. When you say, what can you hear? And if it's silent, they'll say, nothing. But actually, exists in the silence is everything. Think is something, i.e. a noise or a voice breaking the silence, is just one possibility coming out of the silence. If I go now from silence and then start talking, I break the silence with possibility out of infinite possibility, and when I stop talking, that noise, that possibility, goes back into silence or possibility. Everything comes out of the silence. In the silence, everything exists, which is why when you get out of the noise and you sit in silence, you can access things and perceive things and get insights into things that you can't when people are talking and there's noise everywhere. It's because noise pulls you in to the reality of noise. The reality of decoded sound is this virtual reality universe that we experience. And if you notice, society and daily experience now, more and more and more and more, there are things that are breaking the silence. How many people sit in silence anymore? They get into a car, they put the radio on, they go into a room, they put the TV on. Consciousness in its purest is silent, and it is still. And what happens is that you pull possibilities out of infinite possibility, then you are into the realm of creation. So the base state, prime state of consciousness is all possibility, silent stillness. And when you then start to create, you go into the realm of creation, of manifestation, you're pulling out different possibilities out of all possibility. That's when you go into the realm of vibration and form. And that's why the voice said, if it vibrates, it's illusion. Because as it said, and I called one of my books this, infinite love, the existence of the infinite all, infinite possibility, is the only truth. Everything else is illusion. And back to the theme of what I'm talking about, we have been manipulated to identify with the illusion and not with the consciousness that is beyond the illusion, and therefore we live false identities and get caught in the conspiracy by the manipulation of our sense of false identity.
Wonderful. I'm going to take you on the line here, and would you like to ask David a question?
Yeah, you talking to me?
Yes, I am.
Okay, right. Several things. I'm actually ringing from London. I can't turn your voice off, so it's going to be a bit garbled. Firstly, you say that we're being manipulated and divide and rule. No one is manipulating anybody because every vibration is decipherable. 40 octaves above sound is color, and above that is dark matter and dark energy. If you have actually died and come back, you realize that the source is nothing if not unconditional love. There is no diversity. Everything dark and light is the same thing. So there's no Illuminati, no manipulation, no conspiracies. Everything around you is a projection of yourself.
Okay, thank you. I think that's what David was getting at as he was talking about the higher consciousness as we develop that. David, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, that's true. But there are collective versions of that, and one of the collective versions of that is a collective manipulation. In the end, of course, everything comes down to self and what we project and what we draw to us and what we manifest. Of course, that. I mean, that's one of the main themes of my books. But the point is, there are many, many different levels to our own state of being and what we draw to us and all the rest of it in people, places, ways of life and experiences and such like. Yes, that's true. But it also manifests itself in this reality as a collective manipulation. The lady on the call might say that's a collective self-manipulation, and it could well be and probably is. But on the level that we're daily experiencing, yes, there is a manipulation of human reality. Of course there is. I mean, you know, if Osama bin Laden, for instance, was not responsible for 9/11, as he wasn't, if he was an asset, which it isn't, provable fact, then the invasion of Iraq and the invasion of Afghanistan would not have been justified, because even Iraq was justified by implication, if not directly, because we have to stop terrorism and all the rest of it. So it's no good just saying, you know, it's all okay and all the rest of it. Well, let's just sit and accept it then. Let's just accept that everything the governments tell us is true, everything the banking system says is true, and let's just be pawns in a game. You know, surely if we're going to become who we can be and who we really are, then we need to start being conscious enough to see how the game's played, and therefore change it from something we don't like to something that we do like, from a state of imprisonment to a state of paradise. Yes, we're responsible for one and we're responsible for the other, but we don't address the forces that are taking us in a certain direction, then what's going to happen? We're going to carry on going in that direction. So, you know, there are many different levels to this and many different perspectives of the same thing. And one doesn't have to be wrong or right because you're looking at it from a different perspective. It's just the perspective you're looking at it from. And some people will see a half glass of water and say it's half empty, some say it's half full. Neither is wrong, but they're just coming from a different perspective, and this is the same for the way we experience life and different levels of life and expressions of life all the time. But just to say, oh, everything's as it needs to be, and so let's not do anything, it's just, where do we go from there? There is a manipulation on levels of this experience, for sure there is.
Acknowledging it doesn't mean that you're giving power to it, is the point I think that you're making.
I'll tell you what gives power to it.
Ignoring it. Yeah, denial is a mechanism that really hasn't worked very well.
To say there is no manipulation doesn't mean, on a bigger level, that this whole conspiracy may not well be an experience that is showing us something about ourselves. I've talked about that in my books. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means there's something about ourselves, and therefore is challenging us to look at ourselves from the perspective of what that is saying about us. And one thing the conspiracy is saying is, when you close down from consciousness to mind, and you stop being in control of your own sense of reality, and you let someone impose and manipulate that upon you, then you become possible en masse to manipulate and direct. And I think this is a very powerful experience that we're having collectively at this time, as the what has remained hidden comes to the surface in terms of the manipulation that's gone on behind the scenes, that is now becoming more and more obvious, where we can learn this massive understanding, very profound understanding in terms of making this world and our lives a much more enjoyable, loving place than it has been. And that is to see what happens when you give your power away. When you give your power away, this is a big, big lesson that this conspiracy is showing us.
Well, I think we are certainly growing, no question about it, and to keep our options open and our potential open, and we definitely are incredible souls who have incredible ability for freedom and expansion of consciousness, but we are also dealing with the human condition right now. We need to be aware of how that is being manipulated, so we don't add to it, and so that we and be the soul that we truly are, the essence of who we really are. David, you are magnificent, and you have shared so many insights over the times you've been on our show, and this is another wonderful, incredible, insightful show. And I really do appreciate you taking the time to answer our questions. And we have a little bit more time. Would you like to announce any of the current projects that you are dealing with? Is there anything that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I'm writing a new book at the moment, but which is going to keep me in England for most of the summer. But then I'm going all around the world doing public events, and there's a couple in America in October. One's a place called Bellingham, which is close to both Seattle and Vancouver. That's in October, and I'm doing Phoenix in Arizona. That's on the 17th, Phoenix.
So you'll be in Phoenix in October, and where else?
Seattle, Vancouver.
In October as well.
Bellingham.
And people can go to your website, davidicke.com, and get more information on that, I assume.
Absolutely. So people are beginning to ask questions about reality and the world that they weren't asking before. It's a very encouraging time to be here.
Well, and those who have the ability to travel multidimensionally need to share that information with other people. You know, there is a responsibility to helping others, I think, during these very special awakening times.
And, you know, there are no special people, and everyone is equally special because everyone is the same consciousness having an experience. And you know, there's one of the things that mind is obsessed with, but consciousness doesn't do, is hierarchy. And anyone can be all that is, because that's what they are. It's just a case of opening your mind and getting that out of the way so you can recognize that that's what you are and stop believing that you are Joe Smith and Mary Jones.
Well, we are all very incredible beings, and our greatness is just beginning to really show through on multiple levels. And sharing the experience is part of it. And taking off the mask of the ego and not being afraid to be seen as a fool is part of it. And this ability that we all can be free and incredible beings is there for us, and not to be afraid of making mistakes along the way.
Some of the biggest, what at the time appeared to be mistakes. You know, as I've said many times, life has this wonderful ability to give you your greatest gifts, brilliantly disguised as your worst nightmare. What we're going through now, in many ways, with this conspiracy, you know, the idea that conspiracy doesn't exist for anyone who's looked at it is just not supportable. But why is there conspiracy? Well, that's what I'm open to. That this is all part of a game of experience. That is a strong possibility, and the conspiracy is there to teach us something. So it's a great time to be what we call alive, although we never die. So alive here, shall we say?
Well, I think we are learning the contrast in order so that we can birth an incredible paradise on earth, you know, bring heaven to earth in multiple ways. And it really requires, though, for us to look at the shadow to do that. And to deny the shadow would be missing the whole point. This wonderful classroom that we are in, it's a wonderful class, and you get the lesson that you need.
Consciousness, I'm saying, is the opposite of that, which is take your power back. It's the fact that we give it away that other people can then use it against us. If we think we're little me, Joe Public, I've got no power, then we become easy to push around and manipulate. The opposite is necessary, which is realizing that we're not little me, but we are consciousness, and this is an experience. It's not who we are.
Where do you see us going in the next few years, David? What's on the horizon for humanity?
Well, you know, we're at a stage now in this experience where we have the fork in the road, basically. There are those that want to take us in a certain direction towards more and more control, more and more centralization of power. And then there is this awakening that's demonstrably going on, where people are starting to see things, ask questions, and perceive reality in a different way to they have up to this point. And where it goes, we'll have to see. But they are the two, if you like, forces that are deciding which direction the world is going to go, or this experience is going to go. Because that's all this is in the end. It's an experience, and it's not who we are. And let's not get too kind of focused on things that don't matter. We are having an experience, and we make choices which affect the next experience we have, and we need to decide if we're going to go on, ironically, giving our power away and letting other people tell us what reality is, letting other people tell us what's happening in the world and what's responsible for it and who's responsible for it, instead of taking our power back and our sense of perception back and making our own decisions about what's happening in the world, who we are, and all the rest of it. That's the difference between being a manipulator's dream and being a manipulator's nightmare. And how many people make these decisions will decide the direction the experience goes.
When I see that fork in the road, the way I see it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I get the choice between the ego and the soul, or the monkey mind, the choice between that, and a balance between the material world and a higher spiritual essence of the soul and consciousness. A lot of people are kind of mired in ego decisions, making choices, in other words, that satisfy the ego, rather than seeing the essence of their being and the need for the soul to be directing the show instead of the ego, in other words. And the ego is in partnership with the soul and is an instrument of the soul. The soul needs to use it. But we need to get our directions from the soul rather than from the ego. Would that fit in with what
I think we could only make choices on the basis of the information we receive. I mean, this is how the public in general are manipulated to see the world in a certain way. If you are given certain information but other information is denied you, then you're going to make an imbalanced decision because you have imbalanced information on which to make that decision. This is going on all the time. This is why you have the suppression of information and suppression of knowledge on the scale that we do. And if you are encouraged to believe that who you are is your body-mind, then you're going to make decisions based on that sense of reality, and they're going to make decisions that lead us to see material things as success and all the rest of it. Ignore the fact that we've done so, otherwise why do we bother? So it's not that the mind is a bad thing, it's the conduit to experience this reality. The point of little me and I have no power and I'm just a pawn in the game which I have no power over. That's the perception for so many people when they come from the purely mind physical world and experience the physicality or apparent physicality of it, to experience the things that it allows us to experience, the unique experiences, and to allow the mind, or to let the mind be a friend and to be the one that we should identify with, and therefore shut out the infinite level of ourselves, which is consciousness without form.
It's been wonderful, David. I appreciate your taking time with us today. And people do go to davidicke.com. It's a wonderful website. You have some marvelous videos up there, David.
We spent a lot of time putting that together over the years, and it takes a lot of time and work to keep it going. But it is somewhere that people can go if they want to see the world in a different way. I think it's a positive thing.
Well, it's always good to get your measurement of what's going on in the world. Wonderful, I think, a positive perspective. I hope people are hearing that. I do wonder sometimes how deeply they listen to you. because I do see, there is so much negative doomsdayers out there, and you're not one of them. I get that you're really sending a message of love and higher spiritual consciousness. And maybe I shouldn't even use spiritual, because I think people get so hung up on that word, just higher consciousness. And you are a pioneer in so many ways. You've bridged the gap for so many of us. Thank you so much. And people, do please join me on the summer solstice. And that's the weekend, June 20th and 21st. And I'll be sharing powerful secrets in hypnosis and hypnotherapy. And please do go to my website at heartlinkinstitute.com. And I thank you for listening. And this has been such a wonderful show with my guest, David Icke. And this is Cariel's Heartlink Show. And I'm so glad that we've been able to connect and broaden our horizons towards more freedom, light, and love. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Powerful secrets in hypnosis and hypnotherapy. And here's your chance to learn to create effective hypnotic states in yourself and others. And this could be the beginning of a satisfying career in a helping profession, or could add skills that you may need in your current situation. Now, just go to my website and you'll see the seminars link, and click on that and you'll find out more about that seminar, Powerful Secrets in Hypnosis. And that, as I say, is on the summer solstice that weekend. And so I would love for you to join us in Southern California. I also have the crop circle cards available to purchase on my website. And they are a wonderful oracle deck of 64 of the crop circle designs. So it's a very powerful deck of cards. And it comes with a book that explains how to use them. Let's just take a moment now and just draw in this wonderful sacred energy that flows around us, and breathe in sacred love. And the blessing of the day comes from the Gayatri prayer. Let us focus on that effulgent light from which the whole universe is projected. May this inner sun enlighten our minds and hearts, and may we awaken as that light. So good things are coming your way. And let me introduce David Icke, who is with us once again. He's been on several times now, and I just love having him on. He is such a wonderful speaker. Some say he's the most controversial speaker on the planet. And I really do think he has some very profound information. If you listen long enough, you will learn something from David Icke, I promise you. And he is a former professional soccer player, journalist, network anchorman for the BBC, a spokesman in the 1980s for the British Green Party. I find that all very fascinating, David, and I would just love for you to go ahead and introduce yourself. Welcome to our show. David Icke.
First of all, the synchronicity of my life took me to people, places, documents, situations, experiences that showed me that a very few people are actually dictating the direction of global society and manipulating world events, and they are seeking to create a global version of George Orwell's 1984, a global fascist state of total surveillance and all the rest of it. But as I moved through this journey, I came across other elements of this which have been highly controversial, like there are non-human connections to this whole conspiracy, and particularly since 2003, the synchronicity of my life has gone and taken me into deeper and deeper levels of what is reality, what's the nature of reality. Because unless we understand that basic thing, who are we, where are we, what is this reality, then we can't possibly understand to the level we need to what's happening in daily experience. And basically, it's clear to me after 20 years of this full-time journey that's taken me to nearly 50 countries.
You can call in at the bottom of the hour and ask your questions. So do remain on the show, and I'll activate those calls. Actually, I'll activate them in about 20 minutes. So just so you know that. So do have your questions ready when I ask for questions. And first, I'd like to introduce what I do. I am a transformational counselor, coach, and educator. And at the Heartlink Institute, I train others to be counselors. And I also have a wonderful website at www.heartlinkinstitute.com. And you can go and learn about the certification program that I offer, as well as any online classes that are there for you, for your convenience. But if you are in the San Diego area, please do join us at the Heartlink Institute. We would love to see you. And we're going to have a very special workshop coming up in June. I'm very excited about this. Please join me on the summer solstice. And that's the weekend, June 20th and 21st. And I'll be sharing power. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Cariel, and this is Cariel's Heartlink Show. And as I connect to as many hearts as possible, we are creating more freedom, light, and love, one interview at a time. My programs will bring you insights into the great awakening that is underway on planet Earth. I'll be keeping you abreast of the latest tools available for anchoring a greater and healthier reality into your life. I'll be interviewing leading-edge experts in the metaphysical, scientific, paranormal, and spiritual realms. Stay tuned for the next hour as I speak with the famous David Icke, who has really traveled all over to get with us today. And I appreciate that. We've had some fun getting him to get plugged in here to the show. So